Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, and today we are assembling more prizes and alts. Here we specifically have Dr. Dufresne, the alt McMourning, alt Lazarus, Ross Jebsen, who is an alt Hog Whisperer, He-Namatsu, which is an alt Hinamatsu, alt Reva, and the Through the Breach Hannah, arguably the rarest model in the game. I'm going to be careful with this one. Alright, let's start with Dr. Dufresne. So, sadly, Dr. Dufresne does not have instructions, or at least I couldn't find any. But the sprue's pretty simple, so I'm not going to complain too much. We're going to go ahead and grab the front half of her body and then add the back half, followed by the feet. Combine the two halves of the doctor's bag and then glue that to her front and finish with her face. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's the front half. Turn her around and add the back half. And there they are combined. Next to no seam. Okay, and now her feet, which are just going to slot in that hole right there. That was easy to pop into place. Now let's set her down and grab our two halves of the doctor's bag, gluing them together. Here is the front half of the doctor's bag with the handle. Add the back half. Looks just fine. And now we're just going to place it onto her waist like this. Make sure you squish it on tightly enough that the cuffs of her sleeves fit into her forearms, because the hands are attached to the bag. You can kind of see the gap right there on this side. Yeah, make sure that you close that gap as much as possible. Now let's add her face. Alright, that was a really tight fit, and the best way I can describe it is to jam it in there, but push up and in from the bottom, like put a lot of pressure on her chin with something that isn't as sharp as this. Like a fingernail, because you're going to have a big gap right here and you really want to close that, and like pushing on it just straight on is not going to work. You really need to go up and into it. But she's done. Put her on a 30 mil. Dr. Dufresne is completed. Hardest part for assembling her was probably jamming her face into the head well enough that this seam isn't terribly obvious. But not a ton of pieces, so I'd consider it to be relatively easy as far as alts go. Let's move on to our next one, something a little bit chunkier. Sadly, our boy Lazarus does not have a sprue, and this is some kind of different plastic, so we can't even use plastic cement. We're going to have to use super glue, which will make work, but I guess I'm just going to have to show you each individual piece before we assemble it. So we will start with the body. Actually, we won't start with the body. We'll construct each of the legs, which consists of a leg. There's one. There's the other one. And a foot, which is one of these shovel-esque looking pieces. And then something that goes on the back of the calf, which are these two guys. Once those are assembled, then we'll jam them on the body, as well as the sort of crotch flap right there. And we'll go ahead and build each of the arms. We have one arm right here, and the other arm right here, which one of them includes some armor pieces, like this bit, as well as there's a bigger one around here somewhere. I'll find it. Anyways, once both the arms are on, we'll connect the gun. Here is the big part of the gun, as well as some bullets. And, well, I guess they're grenades, but anyways. And then finally the sort of shield that goes on, which is these two pieces. And lastly, we'll go ahead and construct the head, which would be the remainder of the pieces. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded. I'll go ahead and show you the instructions, and now we'll get started on one of the legs. So I have Lazarus's right leg here. We can tell it's the right because the legs sort of curve in towards the center of the body, so you can see this is curving this way. So his pelvis and body would be right here. Now, I don't know. Here, let's look quick at the very obvious hole on the back, if the camera focused. Yeah, you see that hole right there. I cannot tell you which one of these it is, so I'm going to cut one out and try to dry fit it, and we'll see if that works. So we'll cut this one out, and if it works, I'll let you know. Otherwise, you'll have to use this one. I was incorrect. The second one is the one you should be using. Obviously, regardless if you can't figure out which one I'm referring to, just drive it, please. So give me 1 sec, and I'll figure out which foot we're using next. Our right foot is going to be this one on our right. There we go. It looks good. And remember, since we're using super glue, we're going to need to hold the two pieces together longer because it's not going to cure as fast as plastic cement. So we have completed our right leg. Let's go and get started on our left leg, which is going to be this piece plus the other two bits we didn't use. The first one going in here, and then the foot. Before and after. Now let's do our foot. And we have a completed left leg. Now let's grab our torso and slap these on, starting with this guy. Our before shots. Yeah, there we go. And after. Look from the back. Okay, let's do the right leg that we completed earlier. And we have both legs in. View from the back. Should be able to stand up on its own now. Let's do our crotch flap, which goes right on the crotch. Let's add this crotch flap, which is going to go right in there. Okay, so our lower portion of Lazarus is done. Next, we're going to work on the right arm, which is 3 separate pieces. We've got the arm up here. We have the upper shoulder armor, which is going to go on first, and then the elbow armor after that, which we probably need to do some fidgeting to figure out where it's supposed to go. But once those 3 are on, we'll glue them to his body. Now, as you get the arm, make sure you trim off the extra bit of spur right there, as well as stuff that's coming off of this connection point. It should be mostly a flat square. Okay, let's add the big shoulder armor first, which is this lovely giant connection point right there. Okay. Only one way it's really going to fit in there, so don't worry too much about messing it up. As far as our elbow armor, it is going to go pretty much where the elbow is. This is the back of the arm we're looking at. You can see the fairly obvious connection point I messed before. It's right there. And it will correspond to this on the elbow armor piece. Yeah, went in actually quite well. Just, hold it there to make sure the seam is as small as possible. But we're done with the arm, so let's go ahead and attach to the body now. Okay, there it is. In, make sure it is nice and snug, because otherwise it's not going to align with the gun, or the gun's not going to align with the other arm. Either of those are bad, but this is pretty secure. It didn't really wiggle when I set it, so it should be good. Now let's add the other arm right here. There's nothing extra we gotta do for this one. Okay, I'm holding it slightly awkwardly, but there's the view of both of them from the back. Again, just push it in as hard as possible, and they'll get to a point where it can't wiggle, and that should be exactly where it's supposed to sit. So to build our gun next, we have the body of the weapon here. Looking like this. We'll go ahead and add our 2 armor pieces, one going right there, the other one going right there, followed by the ammunition, which should go in this spot right here, and then we'll pop that onto his hands. Okay, how are we distinguishing this two? Well, according to the render, the rounded part is on top, and if you look at our connection points, one is longer, thicker than the other is. So if you look at the gun, you can see that this would be our deeper hole versus a slightly shallower hole over here. So if we're holding the gun up like this, then the 2 shielding pieces are going to go, like that. So let's do the one on the gun's right side. Right there is our first shield thing. Let's do the other one now. Okay, that took a lot of fiddling, and I hated every step of it, but it's in, and they're relatively symmetrical. We'll call it good. Now, as for our bullets, or sticker bee grenades, I guess, our obvious connection point is going to be on this end, and it will be hanging like this. Thankfully, that went in a lot easier. Okay. Now let's attach our hands to this thing. Our right hand is going to be right here, and our left hand is going to be somewhere around here. Yeah. Okay, there's our gun connected. There is an obvious connection point underneath the hand over here. I really don't know what he is holding on to. Maybe there's some sort of grip thing that I can't really tell just because it's all gray plastic. The right hand is the important connection point. As you can see, I didn't manage to close the gap fully on the inside of the wrist, but no one's going to be looking there. It looks fine. I'm not entirely sure how you would put this together in a different order, which would allow you to line these things up better. I think this is just the best one you're going to have to kind of deal with, not the best seams. It looks pretty good, though. So let's go on to our last three pieces. First, there is a small smokestack kind of thing that goes back here, and then the head is in two pieces. So our smokestack thing is going to be right here, with our connection point being right there. The back of our head is this piece right here, and the face connection point right there. And our face, which is right here. I got it upside down, like so. So put the smokestack in, combine the two halves of the head, and plop the head onto the body. Before and after. Okay, let's do our head. Back of the head, plus the front of the face. Okay, I'm holding onto the connection point. It's going to just plop right in here. And the boy's got a head. He's all done. Let's put him on a base. Alt Lazarus is completed. Considerably more pieces than the last one. The hardest part for building him was really the shields that go on the gun, as well as getting the gun to at least look like it's in both of his hands. That was pretty rough. Also, having to use super glue, that wasn't great either. But he's done. So let's move on to our next one. It should be considerably easier. So Ross Jebsen is next, and sadly we don't have any instructions for him either. However, he has only 4 pieces, so I think we'll be just okay. He is pewter, so it's going to take some trimming. He'll have some extra flash sticking out of him. Sort of, I've got it all trimmed up here, so anything you don't see on your on my bits that are on your bits, you can probably cut them off. They usually are fairly apparent anyways. So what we're going to do is he comes in effectively 2 pieces. There is Ross, the body, and the arm / the paint palette, and then there is the easel pig, which are these 2 pieces. So let's go ahead and put Ross together first. Again, you're going to be needing to use super glue for metal models. Ross Jebsen has lovely little plugs where his arms are going to go, so it should be pretty easy to put those arms on him. There we go. It's a lot easier. If you're feeling brave, you can just ever so slightly bend the arms further apart than their original starting position, which will allow you to plug them into the holes better, and then with some squeezing, you'll get them to fit in there real nice. But Ross is done, so let's work on the pig easel now. Here is the back shaft, I guess, of the easel. I'm holding it upright, so these 2 pieces up here are going to be connecting here. This is maybe a little bit better. We're going to be connecting to the top of the frame that's holding up the pig, and then this is some rope. It will connect to the sort of knot that is tied off on one of the well, this knot right here. But it also has a nice connection point, sort of tooth right there, which will kind of plug into the back of the pig. So another one where if you need to do a little bending to get everything to connect together, go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'll assemble it now. And there we go. I think the only thing you actually have to glue in is the connection point along the back of the pig, because it's a nice big connection point. Everything else is not necessary. You can see where that rope connects down here, and then the top of the easel. Just try to get things to touch each other as much as possible. But we're done. Let's put these 2 pieces on the base now. Ross Jebsen is all assembled. Really easy model. Hardest part was the fact that he's pewter and the bits can be a bit bendy, and also using super glue, I guess. But I guess, yeah, fitting is kind of bending his arms enough that his shoulders fit into the shoulder sockets was, we'll say, the hardest part, but still pretty stinking easy. Alright, half done. Let's move on to our next alt. It has been a few days, and I've got new nail polish. Hooray! Let's work on He-Namatsu, the alt that came out just this year. That's her artwork. Here's the render. A Jester man. Our sprue is like such. I think it's going to be a relatively simple order. We will do the two halves of the torso, combine the two legs together, and then jam them up underneath the torso. Then we'll do each of the arms. So 1, 2. Well, there's only 2. And the other 2 are attached. Never mind. However, we will need to put the head of the sort of staff thing on here before we attach that. Once he has the extra arms, we'll add the collar and the head. I think that's it. So let's look at the render and then clip out H9 and H1. Here is H1, now let's add H9. Here is our torso. Let's look at the seams. Just fine. Now let's grab H3 and H4, the two legs, and combine them together. Here is H3, now add H2. H4, sorry. Hinamatsu's got a weird stance, but the seam is closed, so we know this is how it's supposed to go. Now, our specific connection point to the underside of the torso is going to be right here, but there is also a tooth equaling to or matching to a hole right there. So that should all fit in underneath that. Okay, all together. That went in very easily, no real fidgeting around with it, which is great. So now we're going to work on the arms. Our first one, which is H7, is going to go right here in the sort of armpit. It's going to be one of the front arms. And then H6 is going to go on the back here, being the back arm. However, before we attach H6 here, we'll grab H4 and attach that to H6. So looking at that, here is the right arm. Here is the left arm, and you see this sort of staff here. It's got a connection point on the other side, like that. And going in there is going to be H5 right here. Okay. H7, not too much filling to get it to fit in there. Keep in mind that we want the sort of flat connection point you can see up here facing up, because we're going to have that big collar to go on top here. So now let's go ahead and grab H6 and add H5 to it. H6 plus H5, now jam it into the shoulder socket. There we go, looking again for a fairly flat surface because of that big collar, which we're going to put on next. There it is from the back. Our seams look great. So let's add H8 up here and finish off with H2, the head. Okay, H8 is on. Let's look at our seam. Yeah, pretty good. Now let's just go with the head. Yeah. Alright. Goes on. Good. Gonna call him done. Let's put him on a 40. Hinamatsu is all assembled and looking pretty good. Weird that this game only has clowns as alt. I feel like there should be more clowns in Malifaux. Anyways, the hardest part for assembling him was probably the face on the staff knife thing he's got going on there, just because that's a small piece. Yeah, really just that. And I guess adjusting the shoulders so that they are relatively flat could be a bit of a difficult thing, but pretty simple. All in all, really frustrated with how easy the alts are from Gen Con this year. Okay, let's move to our second to last model. Alt Reva is going to be slightly more difficult, but not impossible. We pretty much have two bits, a horse and Reva herself, as noted in the instructions, which I'll show you after this. But we're going to start by creating the horse and the magical effect the horse is standing on. So the two halves of the horse first. Now, just to make sure that it doesn't get in the way, I think we're going to actually do the flame effect which is also connected to the front left leg, which would be this piece and this piece. We're going to combine those two together and then add them to the leg slash the chest of the horse, I believe. After that, we will do the other legs. I think this is the back left leg. The front right leg is here. The back right leg is also engulfed in flame. We'll add that last, and then we will figure out how to assemble and add in the extra flamey bits, which is this piece and this piece combined. After that, we just have a horse's mane, and then he is all good. And then we will take Reva and put her on after that. This is her torso. We will attach that first, or possibly add the legs next. Here's one leg. There's another leg around here somewhere. But after we've added the legs to the add the legs to the torso and then attach that to the model, we can do her arm, which is up here, her other arm, her head, and her hair. Alright, that's a lot of bits. I'll just keep reminding you what goes next, but let's start with these two halves of the horse and the instructions. Right half of the horse plus the left side of the horse. Now I'm already saying that her legs are not attached to her torso at all, so I apologize for assuming that. Also, it looks like the instructions are incorrect, but you can already see one of the grooves for the leg there, and the hole for the other leg goes right here, while the torso ends up going on top. So anyways, we'll get to that later. Let's go and set the body down and do our two flamey bits, which, reminder, where's the direction? I was holding it up like this. It's going to be this and this combined. I'll show you that combination. Here is our bottom flame piece. It will eventually be sitting on the base. You can see that from outside there. So this is the orientation of it. Now our other bit is going to connect right in here and basically wrap over the top of this part, which is actually the horse's leg. So if you do it right, it should actually just be able to sit in place without needing any glue. Obviously you should glue it, but that's the way you know it's done correctly. Okay, here's the combined piece. You can barely make out the seam down there, but let's look at it from both sides. Yep. There we go. So a lot of this is actually going to be connecting to our horse. The leg part will right there, as well as this will wrap across its chest. And actually, I think we're going to do the front right leg before we install this, because this goes over the top very lightly, just barely covers up the right leg. But I want to make sure it's not too hard for you to get that right leg in, so we'll do that next. Okay, our leg is going to connect down here, because that's where the leg starts on the horse. But also, the magical effect, fire, whatever, will come up this way, across his chest, and also go up, I think along here. There's, hard for me to see now, but there's a relatively obvious path for that fire to go. So how would I just add it on there, and then you'll get a good idea where it's supposed to go. Alright, there is it added. Also from the other side. Our seam looks pretty good. Let's just go look underside for no really specific reason. But yeah, you can see the groove a little bit more easier when you actually attach it. Now let's do the front right leg, which is the bent one, and I'll go right here. And there we go. It also connects a little bit to the fire as well. But we have a full set of front legs. Now we can work on the back legs. Let's do our back left leg, which is the one not engulfed in flames, this guy, and then our back right leg will be this one. Yeah, we have a back left leg now. Let's look at the seam on the inside, just for fun. And the butt. Horse butt. Okay. Let's do our back right leg right in there. And there's our back right leg. Now let's try and get the rest of our flamey basing stuff, which is going to connect to these two pieces. Hopefully, I don't have to rip that leg off, because I did it out of order. But we will see our two pieces are going to be this one and this one. We'll combine them together first. Here is our first bit of basing fire, and the other bit is going to connect right here, not here. And that connection point is going to be this big bubble right here. Alright, those are the two pieces combined. Top view. Bottom view is going to give you the best idea of how it's supposed to fit. But now we are looking at inserting that onto the rest of the model. This is sort of the direction you're looking to put it, like down like this. It'll probably take a little bit of fiddling and bending to get it pop in there, but it should be fairly secure. So you can see our back right leg is going to fit right here. Oops, back right leg is going to fit right here, and front right leg should connect on this end. Here they are combined. It took just a little bit of pulling apart the legs to get it to fit in there. I don't really think order is going to matter a whole ton on this. I still think you can do it in the order that I did it in. Let's look from this side as well. So it's good. And now we just need to do the horse's mane right here, which will be the last piece on this side of the sprue. Okay, that popped in there quite easily. You can see the direction the hair is flowing as far as orientation, but also there is a piece of the reins that is attached to that mane. So use that as a point of reference. We now can work on Reva. Let's go ahead and do her legs first, and then her torso. Got our right leg, our left leg, and then her torso. Left leg first. There we go. Also, it is almost entirely connected to the side of the horse, so keep that in mind. Now, the right leg, left leg, sorry. So is a big obvious groove, which will help you insert that leg. Alright, now torso, going to fit up here, and the cape is also going to connect down here. You see the big tooth on it, and where it will attach on the bit. Back up, change of plans. It's going to be really hard to fit the left arm in there if we attach this first, so we'll attach the left arm to the torso. You can see the connection point on the sleeve of her cloak. The arm we are looking at is right here. You can see the hand that is holding the reins. So this will connect to that point I showed you, and this will connect to the reins that are coming off the horse. There is the arm attached. That's what it looks like from the front. The sleeve, part of the bit is the top of the sleeve, so it should be very obvious how it's supposed to fit. I'm not sure why that gap is there, but the rest of it looks good. Now let's add this to the horse now. Alright, she is attached to the horse. You can see the hand holding the reins. View from this side. All is looking well. Now we can finish with the last 3 bits. First up, her right arm, which will be holding the big old scythe. That should connect in there. And then we will combine her head and her hair first, and then plop that down on this stub right. Oh, this stub right here. Okay, let's start with the arm. There's the arm. Again, part of the bit is the top of the sleeve, which will give you a good idea of how it's supposed to sit. Make sure this gap is as small as possible. View it from the back, but from the top, that's the angle we're looking for. Now let's grab our last 2 bits, her head and her hair, and attach them. Now reference head and hair. Okay, here is Reva's tiny, tiny head, but we don't need the front of the face, we need the back of the head. That is our big connection point for the hair. The thing is, the hair, there is that dot connection point in there. Use that as a point of reference. You can kind of see it on the hair there. But the hair is going to take up the entirety of this connection point. So if there's big gaps, you know you need to set it in a different way. But that's about where we're looking. Okay. That's good. Now let's plop the head on. Call her done. And there it is attached. I just set it kind of looking forward and squished it down. And it settled into a good spot. It matches the render. So yeah, base her now. Alt Reva is completed. Kind of difficult. Definitely would be a lot harder if you got the order of assembly wrong, especially with like the front flame part or the left arm, which I would say would probably be the hardest parts of this mini, although I did have a bit of an issue with the head and hair just because those bits are pretty small. Yeah, other than that, I think she's really, really pretty and worth the effort of building her. Let's move on to something special. Here we go, folks. Alt Hannah through the breach Hannah. Let's get started. There are no instructions for this model, sadly, so can't show you anything. However, I have assembled it before, so I should be good to do this correctly. If I recall correctly, my model is still good. Anyways, we're gonna start from the bottom up, so we will actually create the boots and then jam her leg stumps onto them. So big metal stompy boots are 4 pieces, the 2 outer casings, the toe, and then the heel. So I know these 2 fit together, these 2 fit together. I don't know which one of these toes goes into each, same with the heels, but once we have all 4 parts combined, we'll jam them onto her feetsies. And then we're going to basically set the body aside for now. We're going to build just about everything on the harness and arms before we attach them to her, because I know at least this is going to be a huge pain if you attach it after this is attached to her body. So we would start with this. We would grab the 2 halves of like the forearm for either arm, then attach the fingers to it. Each hand has a thumb and I think 3 fingers, or effectively 4 fingers. The right hand is holding the big book, and the left hand is holding the sensor, which is this piece and this piece. So once we have that entire thing assembled, we will, also including the tubes, we'll attach it to her, and then I think do her arms and she will be good. So long-winded speech, we're going to start with the boots. I will we'll go with these 2 first, sure, and then I'll figure out which one of these bits go with that. Okay, well, we have the 2 halves of the boot. They don't like lock into place or anything, so we're gonna go ahead and get the point of the foot on there to give them something to, I guess, cling to. So with some dry fitting, it is this one. This is going to be the toe of the boot. Let's cut it out, and then we will glue both of them to it. Right side of the boot plus our toe, and that is both sides attached to the toe now. I clamped down on it and held it for a long time to make sure that this seam was closed off, otherwise there was a bit of a gap there. So that'll just take a little bit of time, but it will look better, I think, than with the gap there. Anyways, let's get the heel on there. That will be this piece, and then sure, why don't we just shove it onto her foot after that. Okay, heel slides up and in with ease. Now let's put it on her body. Okay, the foot is in there. I went ahead and shaved down the stump, the connection point on the body, just to make sure that it didn't like split open any of the seams here. I really don't want that to happen. But another connection point besides right on the stump of the foot is this back here, connecting up to this tiny little metal piece. There we go, yeah. So now all the other boot pieces we didn't use, combine those into the other one. Right side of the boot, plus the toe, plus the left side of the boot, front view. Now add the heel, and that also slid into place without a problem. Let's jam it on her leg now. Okay, leg went in. I shaved this one down as well, just to make it easier, and to make sure it connects to this little plunger thing up there. Alright, so now we're going to set her down, get to working on our upper harness thing. So we're going to go ahead and cut this guy out, and then we'll get started on the right arm first. Okay, let's get started on our left arm. Pieces we need. This is going to be our elbow plate. The connection point matches up to each elbow. Each elbow has a different connection point, so even if you get it mixed up with this too, some dry fitting will be fine. These 2 are going to be our forearm. Our tubes is this one, the longer one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 straight fingers. Finish off with the book. Alright, let's do them in that order. Elbow plate first. Alright, our elbow plate is going to go right here in this connection point, with the sort of ridges pointing towards the back. Okay, this is what it looks like. Let's look at it from the front real quick. Alright, now combine the 2 halves of the forearm. Okay, this is the combined pieces of our forearm. This sort of box here is going to be on the bottom, and this is what is going to attach to our bit we're working on. So we're looking at from the top now. Let's add it on. Okay. That's what it's looking like. Looks good. Okay, our tubes are going to attach here, and then going to attach in there. In there. So the split end is going to be here, and the combined end will be here. I apologize, I rechecked the render, and while yes, it does connect on this square, it will actually glue into right here in this corner, not up here, like I initially said. My bad. So now let's add that tube. Alright, there we go. Just make sure that this point is flat up against the back of the robot parts, and then our tubes on that square. Alright, all good. Now let's assemble all our fingers. Okay. That is what it looks like. Notice the fingers slightly curving up. That's how they're all going to be in there. So keep that in mind. Let's do our, effectively, maybe thumb or something. The outside finger that goes here, which is this one, which is kind of diagonal from the cylinder it's attached to. That'll go in there. Alright, here's that finger attached. I'm looking pretty even with the first one we put in. Let's do our last finger that's attached to a cylinder here, which would be this guy right here. Oh. Okay, here's that finger attached. Looks good. Now let's add the last finger that's attached to a cylinder right here, which would be this one. I probably should have put that other finger in there first, but whoopsie. At least this gives you a guide, because it will wiggle to make a good cylindrical, not cylindrical, a rectangular insertion for the last finger. So we'll add that one now. And that's our last finger on this hand. Great. Now let's get that book and let me figure out how to attach it. Okay, the render has the spine of the book fitting in between these two fingers, but that doesn't seem to fit right. I have got it to sit pretty nicely if the spine goes right in between these two middle fingers, so that's what we're going to do. Sometimes renders don't actually completely reflect how the build goes, and I think this is one of those cases, so I will attach it and then show you what it looks like. Alright, that is what that looks like. Each of the fingertips is touching the book, and the book is also resting sort of against the wrist, I guess, of the robot body. But that's good. We are done with the right arm. Now we can get started on the left arm. Let me look at our bits. Our bits for the left arm. Let's see. Where is the elbow piece? There's the elbow piece. We'll start with that. And then combine the two halves of the forearm, followed by the tubing, which I hope goes in roughly the same spot as the previous one. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 finger pieces. Once those are attached to the wrist, we'll grab the two halves of the sensor, glue them together, and then glue that to the end of the chain for the that's attached here. And that, I believe, will be it. After that, we just have the 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of Hannah herself. So let's grab that elbow guard first. There's the elbow piece. Alright, now let's combine the two halves of the forearm. And that's it combined. We are looking at the spot that attaches to the arm of the robot part. So just make sure that your seams look nice and even, and now let's attach that. There's our forearm for the bottom. Alright, our tube is not going to connect in here like the other one does. It's just not long enough. It looks like it will sit right there pretty nicely, so we'll combine it here and here, the more expanded, wider part of the tube going in the forearm like that. Okay, see where in the forearm it attaches, as well as up near the elbow. Also a view from the front would be quite helpful. But that's nice and flush, so now we can get started on the hand. Let's go ahead and start with the finger with the big plug that will go in here. And there is the finger. Again, only 2 other bits that we need to add to it this time. The one that isn't the two fingers combined in one, also holding the chain, will go over here. Alright, that is the finger in the right spot. Be careful when showing that in there. Otherwise you might nudge something out of place on the arm or separate the 2 halves of the forearm. Be careful. Okay, so the finger holding the chain is going to be on the inside here. So let's do that one next. And there we go. Roughly the same exact curl as the middle finger. And then our thumb and other finger is going to go in on this side. There we go. We've got one whole fist. Now let's do the 2 halves of the sensor. This is the top of the sensor. And that's the hole that will plug into the chain. The bottom has these 4 sort of spiky pegs that are coming out of it. So they'll be hanging down. And there's no real particular rotation, I feel, for them. So just put it in here. And there we go. Now we can just glue that into the peg and be very careful with it for the rest of the build. Okay, I don't think it's going to fully go up the peg, and that matches the render, so I'm not going to accidentally snap that chain by messing with too much. We have 1 piece left before we actually get to Hannah herself. I didn't realize this before, but it is this piece right there. And we'll actually go on the sort of shoulder right here on the robot. And our robot parts are done. So why don't we attach this to... actually, let's put her left arm on. Specifically her body. Let's do her left arm before we add the robot bits, because it might be hard to get the robot bits after. It's the one that's pointing down does not have like the finger outstretched. This one is the left arm. That is the right arm. Left arm. Alright, that's our left arm. Now let's slap the robot stuff to her back. Actually, no, I didn't realize that the connection point was sort of hooked like this, so we really do need to do her right arm first. I'm sorry. Alright, she is out of arms to do. Now we can attach the backpack robot thing. Okay, that was great because we had a chance to aim the finger, and we wanted to try to get it to fit in this little crease in the book. Looks like she's wiggled a little bit since I've done it, but there we go. I'm just going to hold this in place and let her cure, but it looks pretty good. So now we'll just do the 2 halves of the head when I'm done here. Last 2 bits, back of the head, front of the face. Back of head, and the front of the face. Oops. Maybe do a better job of cementing it than I did. But yeah. Okay, add it to her neck stump. And there we go. She is all done. Let's get her on a base. Through the Breach, Hannah Lovelace is completed, looking gorgeous. So happy I got to assemble this model again. Okay, so hardest part for her would definitely be if you did the order wrong and tried to figure out the tubes after the robot arms have been attached to Hannah. Also, a bit of a difficulty with the tubes in general, and the fingers getting the order of those correctly. I guess the last difficult thing I would complain about is the sensor. Just being cautious around that chain, as well as the book, figuring out how to set it on the hand so that Hannah is pointing to it. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. I'm not going to do all 6 of them together because they're not a combined box. Just means that we get to stare at Hannah by herself for a little while. Really love this model. Okay. I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux.